everyone, welcome to our course, Green Economy from China Stories. In the last lesson, we learned the concept of sustainable development. Today, we are going to talk about how Sustainable Development Strategy is formed in China. First, let me ask you a question. Why does China have to implement the Sustainable Development Strategy? There are three reasons. First, the Sustainable Development Strategy is the consensus of coordinated economic and social development of all countries in the world. In order to meet the demands of rapidly growing population and rising living standards, development has always been the common pursuit of mankind. The world's developed countries simply pursue high-speed economic growth, which has caused many contradictions and serious problems such as environmental pollution and ecological deterioration. These problems are getting worse and gradually develop from local problems to global problems. Since the 1960s, the scientific community has begun to explore a way out of dilemma and introduced various new development theories and development strategies. In the end, the Sustainable Development Strategy proposed in the 1980s was jointly recognized by all countries in the world, and a consensus was formed gradually. Second, implementation of Sustainable Development Strategy is also China's commitment to the United Nations and other world organizations. In June 1992, the United Nations held the second Environment Conference in Brazil, published the Rio Declaration on the Environment and Development and the Agenda 21st, and signed several environmental protection conventions. This conference and the documents adopted have proposed a new model for establishing a coordinated and a sustainable development of economy, society, resources, and environment. At the conference, many countries have successfully formulated their sustainable development strategies. In July 1992, China began to compile the China's Agenda 21st Century. After repeated argumentation, discussion, and revision, it was published by the State Council in 1994. The implementation of Sustainable Development Strategy was incorporated into the 9th Five-Year Plan for National Economic and Social Development and the outline for the long-range objectives through the year 2010. Third, the implementation of Sustainable Development Strategy is determined by China's national conditions. Per capita natural resources in China is less than that in other countries, and the exploitation and utilization rate of natural resources is low. Years of blind exploitation have caused serious damage to natural resources and deterioration of ecological environment. Overpopulation, resource shortage, and environmental degradation have become prominent issues that restrict the rapid, sustained, and healthy economic development in China. Only by implementing the Sustainable Development Strategy, continuing to deepen reforms, making efforts to adjust the industrial structure, speeding up change of economic growth pattern, reduce the dependence on and use of non-renewable resources, and stressing the development, utilization, and protection of renewable resources, can we achieve green development and build a beautiful China. Therefore, the Sustainable Development path taken by China is a strategic choice based on its national conditions and a step in conformity with development trend of the world. the introduction of necessity, let's take a look at how China implements the Sustainable Development Strategy. Shortly after the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in 1992, the Chinese government compiled the China's Agenda 21st, White Paper on China's Population, Environment and Development in the 21st Century. It is the first national sustainable development strategy in the world. The success of its preparation not only reflects China's internal need for development, but also shows the attitude and determination of the Chinese government to actively fulfill international commitments and take the lead in contributing to common cause of all mankind. In 1996, the Chinese government listed invigorating China through science and education and sustainable development as a national development strategy, and proposed to turn the mode of economic development from extensive to intensive development. Since the 18th CPC National Party Congress in 2012, China has adhered to the notion that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. It gave high priority to ecological progress in the economic process, political process, cultural process, and social process, which form the five-sphere integrated plan for developing socialism with Chinese characteristics, and introduced a series of measures to promote ecological conservation. Since then, the sustainable development has entered the fast track, driven by strong force. In 2015, the fifth plenary session of 18th CPC Central Committee introduced the principles of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development. The sustainable development based on the concept of green development entered into a new era. The report of the 19th CPC National Congress in 2017 pointed out that we must firmly implement the 7 strategies, including the Sustainable Development Strategy, in the decisive period in finishing the building of moderately prosperous society in all respects. These concepts and practice not only exemplify China's firm attitude and determination to take the path of sustainable development, but also make China live up to its responsibility as a major country. Next, let's turn to an important document, China's Agenda. First, let's look at the background. In 1992, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development adopted the Agenda 21st, and the Chinese government made a solemn commitment to implement the Agenda 21st and other documents. On March 25, 1994, China's Agenda 21st was reviewed and approved by the State Council. According to its national conditions and the characteristics of developing countries, China's Agenda 21st states the Sustainable Development Strategy in China. It is the first national sustainable development strategy in the world. Next, we are going to study the main content of the Agenda 21st. The agenda covers 20 chapters and 78 fields. The content is divided into 4 parts. Part 1. Overall strategy and policy for sustainable development. It introduces the background and necessity of sustainable development strategy in China. It introduces the strategic goals, strategic priorities and significant actions of China's sustainable development, and the legislation and implementation of sustainable development. It formulates economic policies that promote sustainable development and identifies the principles, position, and main action fields of the international environmental and development cooperation. Part 2. Social Sustainable Development. It includes population, household consumption, and social services, poverty eradication, sanitation and health, human settlements, and disaster prevention and reduction, among which the most important is to implement the family planning, control the population, and improve the quality of the population. Part 3. Sustainable Economic Development. The agenda takes the rapid economic growth as the primary condition to eradicate poverty, improve people's living standards, and enhance national strength. Part 4. Reasonable use of resources and environmental protection. It includes the protection and sustainable use of natural resources, such as water and soil, biodiversity protection, prevention and control of land desertification, and disaster prevention reduction. The formulation and implementation of China's Agenda 21st make the China's exploration and practice on the road to sustainable development. Today, we have learned the formulation of sustainable development strategy in China. I hope all of you could gain something from our lesson. Thank you. See you next time.